the first day filming for me. It's the very first time we see Lecter.
You use Evian skin cream.
So I didn't know what the reaction would be, and here I am, an unknown, relatively unknown actor, and not American. I thought, well, either stand or fall on this performance.
We knew that Hopkins was an extraordinary actor, but we wondered if he would get Lecter.
First day on the set in the jail block, there had been no rehearsal, so we weren't prepared for the moment.
We rolled it, and he went, "Hello, Clarice." And we went, "Oh my God, he's got it."
When I was reading the script, first of all, I got an idea of what his voice would sound like.
Good evening, Clarice.
And once that was in my mind, I could see him for what he was physically. I could see him as a very lean killing machine. Hair tightly pulled back, as if his brain is bursting out of his skull. So we started the camera rehearsal, and Jonathan Demme said, "Where do you want to be seen in the cell? Would you be sitting down or lying down or drawing or writing?" I said, "No, I'd rather be, I'd like to stand right in the middle of the cell." He said, "In the middle of the cell?" I said, "Yeah, waiting for her." He said, "How do you know she's coming?" I said, "I can smell her." The reason I felt that that was right was to give the audience a fright, because they talk about him for at least 10 minutes before he's seen as some kind of babbling psychopath. And I wanted to play him the opposite. They always play the opposite of what the audience expects. And it scares them more.
Good morning.
So what they see is a very polite, gentle man's good morning from the FBI. It's like a cat, watching a cat before it makes its pounce, or a lion before it kills its prey. Very still, they don't move, not a muscle, not an eye flick. And that builds up tension in the audience.
What does he do, this man you seek?
Stillness and economy is much more effective. You don't need to do all that pulling faces, although I've done a bit of that in my life, but the camera does all the work for you.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
I put that in at the end, just for a joke. I thought they'd cut it out, and Demme said, "God, you're so sick." I said, "Is it over the top?" He said, "Yeah, but I love it." So he kept it in.
We were on set, and Hopkins was sitting in a high director's chair. He had his white T-shirt on covered with blood, and there's blood all over his mouth. And he's sitting there, and he's reading Eudora Welty, spouting to people as he walked by. He's going, "I'm mad, you know, I'm mad."
I think it would be quite something to know you in private life.
Quid pro quo, Doctor.
Jodie Foster's a very fine actor, and she does her job, she does her work, and I do mine. And that's the contact. It's common sense. And then people make up this weird word, chemistry. I don't know what that means. Know your lines, show up, and get on with it. That's my philosophy.
I'm here to learn from you.
And she is very smart about her choices. I think she makes wonderful choices. You can see that it comes out so effortlessly, but you know that there's a lot of thinking that's gone into it. She really nailed it.
She had to carry the entire movie on her shoulders.
You call this easy, sir?
In some ways, it's a more thankless part. It's not a showy part like Lecter.
It's an anti-actressy performance. And she really doesn't have any of those big acting moments that you expect in a film.
Jodie said to me one time, "This isn't the kind of part that you win Academy Awards for."
Jonathan pushed her to a real level of complexity in the part. Jodie's performance comes so much out of who she is.
You know what you look like to me with your good bag and your cheap shoes? You look like a robe. When I needle her, and I attack and dissect her and take her to pieces, and she has a reaction which is, I don't know how she did it. I've tried to imitate her, I can't do it. She decides she's going to hold on to her emotions, hold on to her strength and her strength, but at the same time she wants to break down and cry. And she tries to bluff it out with him, and she can't because her face gives away. I don't know, it's a remarkable performance. I can't even describe it, so watch the movie.
You see a lot, Doctor?
Now, there are 3, 4, I guess, scenes between the two of them that are all basically two people sitting and talking. But Jonathan understood, and those actors understood, that those scenes were the heart of this movie.
The shooting of the prison sequences took a very long time. We'd come to work every day and we'd think, how are we going to cover it today? You know, we've done this and this, you know, we're going to do this. How are we going to continue to make it interesting? Two people through a glass talking.
Jonathan Demme and his cinematographer, Tak Fujimoto, found ways to make those scenes different.
Quid pro quo, Doctor.
Tak Fujimoto was so brilliant and so calm. I think there was a synergy.
I was watching, in particular, the way that Jonathan and Tak worked together. I couldn't figure out what was going on. John would say something and Tak would go, but there was very little dialogue.
I kept watching dailies and thinking, he's using too many close-ups. They're all close-ups. But what that does is when you watch the movie, you want to back away from it.
Then something woke you, didn't it? Was it a dream?
So they're in very tight on your face, full face. There's no problem with that, except the focus pullers have to be whispering all the time and readjusting, so you have to be very, very still.
I was so scared to look inside, but I had to.
Jodie Foster was marvelous at that. I tend to be a bit impatient.
In Lambs, you see both kinds of close-ups in the same scene, where people are looking right at you or people are looking offset.
Did you do all these drawings, Doctor?
I think it's talking directly to the audience. So the audience feels that they're Clarice, or the other character you're talking to. So it involves a lot of audience intimacy.
What did you see, Clarice? What did you see?
You have two villains, the arch-villain, Hannibal Lecter. But there's also Buffalo Bill.
It was intriguing to me, challenging. Complicated human being, an evil human being. I had a good deal of time to work on the part before we started shooting. I read a great deal of material about serial killers. Not a fun process at all. I mean, I lived with a lot of images that, I still remember. I read a lot about Ed Gein and this guy, Jerry Brudos, who was dismembering women and trying to make lampshades out of skin and that sort of thing. The sense that I got from both of those guys in particular was that they were self-indulgent. They were really, I think, addicted to this idea of sex and death sort of being close together and really got off on that.
You don't know what pain is!
He fancied himself a victim, and I think aware of the fact that he was dealt a bad hand as a child, in his mind, to a certain extent, felt justified in what he did. There's a tremendous amount of material in the book. Chapter 20. Whether his behavior was an earnest, inept attempt to swish or a hateful mocking would be hard to say on short acquaintance. There was a lot of flack about him being gay. I never played him as being gay. Male sexuality is a complicated thing, and goes all kinds of different directions, I met with female impersonators. I went to some very interesting bars, looking and talking to people about, a side of life that I'm not familiar with. And I came to the conclusion that none of that had anything really to do with this. If the guy was gay, he'd be killing and maiming boys and men, and he was killing women. He was scared about the gay thing, too. And I said, don't worry, this is not a gay character. You don't want to beat that movie cliche over the head of the mincing homosexual. The stance I took was more one of an acutely homophobic heterosexual man doing that mocking thing.
Yes, you will, precious. You will get the hole.
I kind of took it that he was sort of imitating the way his mother might have talked to the poodle. By hearing that voice, in a sense, he's sort of talking to himself, his inner poodle, as it were. The other thing he's not a transvestite either, or a transsexual.
But he thinks he is. He tries to be. He's tried to be a lot of things, I expect.
He was playing with these ideas. He's tried on a whole lot of personas and just got hooked on this idea of dressing in a woman's skin. He wanted the power that he perceives a woman possesses. I want you, so I'm going to have you. I'm going to have you completely, and that I'm going to skin you and crawl inside you. Ugh. It's a simple thing that anybody can do in the privacy of their own home to kind of check yourself out to look, what would I look like if I was a girl? It made it immediately accessible to people.
I remember him saying, "Why would you want to do this?" I remember that in the final meeting. They're pretty extreme circumstances, so it was hard for me to really relate to. I think he just wanted to make sure that I could get to where he wanted me to get to emotionally. I also had to agree to gain 25 pounds. Good. You didn't really get to see a lot of her before she was put into that circumstance. She was probably very different in those circumstances than she was normally, as I think any of us would be.
No, don't you leave me here, you fucking bitch, no!
He could tell when I was working, and he could tell when I needed to be adjusted, and he was very delicate when he came down to talk to me because I was sort of in a thing. But once I got in there and I was screaming and doing all that stuff, I remember being incredibly relaxed when I got out because I think, isn't there that primal scream therapy or whatever? I remember getting out of the pit and everybody else being freaked out and me being like, very relaxed.
There was a bit of method work going on, I mean, Jodie and I didn't talk much. I got close with Brooke.
I was a little wary of him. He scared the shit out of me. I mean, he really scared me a lot.
Now he places the lotion in the basket.
But I think actually once we got into those scenes, I sort of went out of my way to be nice to him and to make sure we were okay because of the intensity of that relationship.
Put the fucking lotion in the basket! The shit freaked me out. The scenes were really nasty, and relating to her on that level and trying to look at her as an object was really icky. We'd get done with scenes and it was like, glad that's over, and I like you.
Jodie used to call me Patty Hearst on the set because I'd always be sitting with Ted. We were friends,